Join the Shot Talk Patreon at patreon.com/shottalk. You'll get access to bonus content, Q&A opportunities for future guests, and more. Thanks and enjoy.
Rather than the industry, I want independent stuff to get bigger. I want people to pay more attention. I want people to feel like I did when I was a kid. Like I thought that, you know, every last other teenager making cartoons in their mom's basements was so important because it was these ideas being put straight from their imagination to the screen.
Hey guys, this is Rodrigo and welcome to another episode of Shot Talk. Today we have the esteemed Kalen Whitfield. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Great. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for coming out here, dude. I was just talking to some friends about how it feels like it's cool to see a bunch of people from Newgrounds and online animation stuff sort of finding their way into the industry. And I remember seeing one of your cartoons like maybe 5 years ago was that sloth cartoon that you did, which fucking killed me. I thought it was like one of the funniest things I'd ever seen. And then here you are out here in Southern California, which is crazy. Yeah. Like, where did that sloth cartoon come from? Like, what the hell is that about? Like,
so that was a storyboarding homework assignment that I did, and I kept doing all this like anime ass like weeaboo shit like in class, and my teacher was like, "Okay, this anime stuff is cool and everything, but you should try and expand your horizons, you know, like do something outside the box, do something with no pretty human characters." And I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm like, I couldn't think of anything. And my first thought was like, okay, fine. You know what? A sloth tries to get a hot dog and some shit happens. And I wasn't thinking, and I did it in maybe an hour. Don't tell that teacher. But I did it in an hour before class. And
yeah, didn't you have like a raptor or something show up? It's been a while since I've seen it. Like he just shows up and
so basically this sloth, he's out in the rainforest and he gets the hot dog, a raptor snatches him, and he's hungry, but he has like electric powers.
Okay,
and he electrocutes the raptor like Blanca from Street Fighter then eats him.
Dude, you're bringing me back. That's awesome. So were you in animation school when you? That's not like you said it was a homework assignment.
I was going to school at Columbia at the time. Okay. And I was in the animation department there.
So is that school, are they known for having an animation program?
Yeah, definitely in the Midwest at least, or the North, I guess. Because Chicago is like the nearest biggest city.
Okay.
But admittedly, I feel like as far as it is away from LA, that it's kind of a little bit out of touch with what's actually going on in the industry. Not to shit on my school, I had fun, but I definitely felt like there was a lot that I was not prepared for, when I got here. And I think that comes from being in touch with animators who are making it in other states and doing freelance work, but not necessarily the studio that's in LA.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of where the internet comes into play, and you start to see what other people are doing. And I think, because I was thinking about how I felt like back in the day it used to be, unless you came from one of the top schools like Cal Arts or Goblin's or something, it was pretty hard to crack that door and get into the industry. And but I think you're one of the first, this new generation of people I think that are finding their way in just because they put stuff on the line and they sort of get a name for themselves. Is that kind of what happened for you in terms of getting in, or how did that work out for you, your first gig out here?
It was definitely helpful because I was used to making work on my own and making a lot, but I wouldn't say that necessarily making the cartoons themselves made any huge difference from my other friends who didn't do that when they were younger, but just knowing the type of cartoons that I wanted to make and having that practice with making things that are timed and edited and have shots and animation and stuff, that was helpful,
Okay.
I actually when I got here, there was the internet factor, I guess, was not something that really came into play so much as the fact that I just had a lot of shit that I had done beforehand. and I got my first job across the street by actually trying to sneak in. And I got caught by one of the execs, and
That Fox ADHD.
yeah, like
Who caught you? Just curious.
it was Matthew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the British guy?
Yeah, yeah,
I know him, yeah.
yeah. He there was this day because like my friends and I, before we get started working in animation, a few of us just kind of like we graduated, and we knew people who like stayed and got jobs like doing like vaguely animation adjacent things, you know, in their home state or in Illinois. And we were like, you know what, fuck it. Let's just move out there and like get jobs as baristas and just see what happens. And that's what we did. And we came out here. And,
That sounds like, that's like a very Spielberg thing to do, because, you know, the classic story where he was on the Universal tram and he just hops off of it and wanders into Universal Studios, and he's like, I'm going to just hang out here now. So what like for you though, like what were you planning on doing once you got into the building? Like, was there a game plan or like?
No, I basically, cause like at the time I was working at Starbucks and McDonald's, and I had a day off, and I went over to the guild, and like I found out they were telling me some of like the names of like some studios that existed and like some addresses, and I got this idea where I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just like go over to WeHo and just like, you know, see if I can talk to somebody or something. So I printed out, I took an 8.5 by 11 sheet because I couldn't afford business cards. And I printed out like a business card design on this thing and stuck it in my back pocket. And like me and two of my buddies like got in my other friend's truck and drove down here. And we're standing outside like hovering around the door. And like we didn't know what a small studio this was. Like everybody at the studio like knows each other. And we go out there, and there's some people outside, and we're like, hey, like we're gonna like wait for this door to open, and then we're just gonna walk the fuck up in here.
Kind of la 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 la.
Yeah. And we did it. Like we were just standing outside the door, and like we had no idea that one of the guys who was hiring everybody was just like there, like just chilling outside. And he turns around, he's like, who the fuck are you guys? And we're just like, we're animators, man. And we just graduated, and like we're big fans of your stuff. And it was true. Like I loved ADHD's the internet cartoons.
Yeah.
And
That's cool, man. That's
Yeah.
so funny. Like you just kind of went for it. And so then at that point they're like, well, do you have a portfolio, or like is that kind of where the conversation went? And then you brought stuff with you that day or whatever?
yeah, like I had my little shitty like big dumbass business card on this like folded 8.5 by 11, and I just had like my web cartoons and like some storyboards I made for school on this thing, and I gave it to him. And yeah, 2 or 3 months later he called me while I was spilling drinks all over myself at Starbucks, and I ended up with my first job there.
That's awesome. Did you go in as like a storyboard or a designer, or?
I was a storyboard revisionist.
Okay, cool.
On this show called Golden the Insatiable. And yeah, I learned a lot of, honestly, what I survived off of, like in the industry. I learned in that first 3 months of like of being on that job. You know, it was like not like the 4 years of school didn't add anything, but like that 3 months was as harsh and as educational as that entire 4 years.
What do you think was the biggest takeaway from that, or some of the biggest takeaways? When you say you learned so much, like, are you talking about dealing with work, or are you talking about like actual technique learning, or like what do you mean by?
Probably technique more than anything.
Okay.
And like what is acceptable for storyboards in the industry, because I mean, you know, a lot of cats like me, like who made cartoons from scratch, and I'm sure you know this too, like, you know, we're used to doing the whole product, and you say like, oh, like, what do you want to do in animation? And you're like, I don't know, I do everything. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I guess I'll just pick something. But like being there and doing revisions on that show for the boards, I was like, oh, no, I think I want to do storyboards. Like this is the closest thing to making the whole cartoon. And I learned the rules of the rule of thirds and the you know, screen direction and all that stuff just from correcting the stuff that my director was yelling at the board artists about. So
That's great. It's kind of just eavesdropping those conversations in a good way.
Yeah.
Did you work with a guy named Chase?
Chase Conley?
Chase Connolly, yeah. I worked with him briefly because I was part of that scene back when they were. I was mentioning to you back when they were in the house in Los Feliz, and before they ended up in that big studio right across the street. But Chase is super talented guy. Like draws all those sexy girls and everything. Like I was a big fan. I'm a big fan of the stuff he does. So. Yeah, I know he ended up doing some directing too, so I was wondering if you got the chance to run into that guy.
Yeah, more than run into him, actually, we've been working at the same studios for like the past 4 years, almost entirely. He was actually my first friend that I made working in the industry because he was in the room with us while he was directing on Major Lazer. And then I ended up like at Warner Brothers of like a year, maybe like 2 years after ADHD. And he was at Warner Brothers too. And then at my last gig at DreamWorks, he's one of the directors on that show as well.
Oh shit, yeah.
So yeah, he's just been like an NPC in the video game of my life, yeah.
That's cool. And I know both you guys kind of do a lot of, I think this is like a bigger thing, but like both you guys do anime inspired action stuff and like really, because I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of people now are coming up with watching a lot of Japanese stuff, and then especially on Newgrounds you see
Sakuga,
yeah. So you see that everywhere. I know, and your stuff is really fun that way. Like you always have these super badass fight scenes and everything. Like I'm guessing it was just all the anime, right, growing up?
Yeah,
most of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Weirdly enough, actually, my dad is an enormous weeaboo. Like he like watched anime like when he was younger, and like I was lucky enough to have him like stick like 90s, like gruesome 90s anime in front of me when I was a kid.
Ninja Scroll or things like that, or like
not Ninja Scroll at first, not until later, but definitely like Ghost in the Shell. Like there was like that old Street Fighter 2 anime, that TV one, and like some other stuff.
That's great. Yeah, that's cool. I always feel lucky because my dad he'd always put in like classic, movies and comedy stuff that like when your brain is so young and absorbent, like it's good to run into that stuff. And yeah, like the 90s anime too was some of the best out there. So I'm always like, man, am I just an old person now, or is it like? But no, like objectively, some of the best stuff still was from that decade. So yeah, that was a good time. Mm-hmm. I noticed you do a lot of like you have this character that you came up with. It's like a warlock goat guy. Like where did he come from? Like
so that character is he is more or less me trying to be like, I'm gonna just make a character that is literally everything I want to do, who reacts to things in the way that I want to, but without any of the like societal filters and just me being a pussy in real life. So like I'm just like, I'm gonna make like a dude who's just like, he's a wizard and he does whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, I mean, if you were like eating people with your stomach in real life, you'd get arrested probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Was that wasn't related to school? That was just something you did for fun, or?
Yeah, it was just for the hell of it. Cause I mean, I've been making stuff for Newgrounds since I was 14, and Jesus Christ, that's half my life. Oh my God. Yeah, just like kind of lurking in the background, making shitty Newgrounds anime, having fun. And when I got to school, I kind of started to realize like what the expectations were for working in the industry and like the echelon of quality that you had to get to. And I don't like mulling things over a lot. I kind of just like making whatever and just having fun and just doing whatever pops into my head, which is where that sloth thing came from.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite shit to do. So working in the industry for the past 4 years, there's a lot of quality control and mulling over things and perfectionism, and they can be afforded that because you're working on one specific thing, and like you have that one job and then that's it, and you have to like nail it. You have to be like an ace at it. But when I go home, I guess I felt like I'd really missed making videos of whatever the hell I wanted and thinking about it. So I kind of just used the insomnia that was already there to make some cartoons at home.
Yeah, man. No, I noticed some of your newer stuff. You have really, really nice establishing shots. And I'm guessing you use like some sort of a 3D program to help with some of the buildings, or is that just that's just straight up your drawing perspective?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's really impressive. Because that's what I was noticing. Because I was going through your stuff this morning, and I was like, man, Kalen's really got that like cinematic establishing shot really set up nicely. So wow, that's just willy nilly then.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's very slow, but backgrounds were actually my weakness, and because of that, I got really obsessed with them and like bought all these books and like tried to teach myself how to do it. But
they look crazy, dude. They look really good. You figured that one out.
Yeah, it would just take forever for me to do.
Yeah, no, they look really clean.
Thanks, man.
No, I'm remembering the first time that I ran into you was in Philadelphia when we were hanging out at Pico Day.
Yeah.
And but there hasn't been a Pico Day in a while, but I wish that would happen again at some point. Like, yeah, it's been too long. How many times did you go out there for that? Just
that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I got this feeling where I was like, man, like, you know, I'm an adult now, because like they've invited me before, but I was always just like too broke or like a kid, so like I couldn't quite make it out there. And then this one time I was like, oh man, I got to do this. Like I can actually like get out there this time, and I really last minute like made it out there. But that was like one of the best experiences I've had in my life, like hands down. Like just seeing all these people like you and just like all these other people that I watched, like, you know, as a kid and like growing up, like I was watching internet cartoons way the fuck more than I was watching like TV cartoons. So that shit was magic, man.
Yeah, it always feels like, because I've talked about this experience with like other Newgrounders where it's like there's no like awkward warming up process. Like you show up and it's like, oh, I'm kind of home. I kind of just slip right in. You know what I mean? It just feels right. Yeah, like the whole vibe, right?
Oh my God, yeah. It was like I had known like everybody there like already, because like I feel like we were living like a similar existence where we were just like, oh, there's this thing called Flash. Let me just literally pour my like dumbass imagination like on this. Yeah.
No, I think Newgrounds has that. Like I don't know, Tom's always had that like do whatever you want, like because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you know, just no judgment, da 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 da. But like they actually mean that on Newgrounds. It's like you do whatever the fuck you want, and like it's so artist friendly, and it attracts like the most weird, cool, creative people as it is. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, no, Tom is like, yeah, he's been really generous and good to all of us.
Hell
so,
yeah. Like they actually gave me my first drawing tablet I ever had when I was a teenager. Like,
did you win a contest or anything, or did they just like?
They were just doing like that. They did like a December giveaway for like Wacom tablets for like these small ones, and they were like, yeah, just send us your like fucking sob story or whatever, and like tell us. And I'm like, hi, I have like an hour and a half of content on here, and I've made the whole thing with a mouse. Oh, wow. And they're like, oh, okay, well here, dumb kid, take this tablet. I'm like, yes.
Don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
No, I started laughing because I remember Tom was encouraging some of us to put those packages for artists, you know, like anytime they did stuff like that. Yeah. And so Tom was like, yeah, next time you come to Pico Day, just bring along some stuff so you can, you know, pass it along. I'm like, okay, so I thought, man, and I had just started my job, so I had all these like free movies from like, I like How to Train Your Dragon, this and that. I was like, oh, I'll put that in there and I'll grab this and that. Yeah. But I felt like this is Newgrounds, I need to add something extra. So I went to Walmart and I grabbed a DVD copy of, it was like Jane Fonda walking it off or something for like elders, and then like a bottle of baby lotion. And I was like, I'll just package this up along with like copies of How to Train Your Dragon and and my old stylus, of course. And Tom's like, okay, great, thanks. And he never sent it, right? So years later, Jeff is like, Johnny Utah, for people who don't know, Jeff is like, what the fuck is this? And he takes a photo of Jane Fonda walking it off or whatever in your 50s and baby lotion. He's like, I found a bag with these two things, and he puts it on Twitter. And everyone's like, what in the hell is that doing at the Newgrounds office? And yeah, well, I cleared that up on Twitter, but like, yeah, no. But anyways, long story short, yeah, I put one of those packages together, so I'm glad that I'm glad that it made people's lives better in some fashion.
I'm only sorry that I didn't get that fucking package.
I wish they sent it out now. That would have been so good.
Oh my God, I would totally do the same. Honestly, like I wish YouTube never happened.
I know,
so
dude.
like I would, man, that there's nothing like that community on Newgrounds, just because like even doing something like that like is like perfectly acceptable. It's like, yo, you got this from a fucking Newgrounds person.
Yeah.
And here it is. Like, here's your fat material with Jane Fonda and the baby oil, and then like a fucking tablet. Go do something constructive.
Yeah.
You know.
Get inspired, whatever that leads to, or whatever.
I swear.
Yeah, no, I mean the YouTube thing is a. It feels like I'm hoping that it's just like almost like a pothole in the road where it's like, okay, we all tried it because there was promises of riches and glory and this and that, but it's now that we know that that's not working, it's sort of, I feel like there's this like renaissance that may, or I feel like it's bubbling, right? That Newgrounds might be coming back, because I know guys like Ivan, like he's a big like Newgrounds like pusher and everything, and I feel he's helping with like the mobile design, he's helping with like the site design and this and that, and I feel for everybody, including myself, who was burned with YouTube, it's like, okay, well, since we're not doing this to monetize or try to make a living out of it, like it's kind of return to like priorities, like at this point,
artistic expression and just like your ideas, as opposed to like, oh, this thing got this person rich, on YouTube, let me chase the trend.
Right. So yeah, I can only hope that we're kind of going back to that at this point. Yeah,
I'm actually super fucking optimistic because like on Twitter, there are so many like 14-year-old monsters like making like amazing shit like every day. Like I go in here and I look at like these kids and these furries who are just making this dope ass shit like all the time, and I'm like, how did you, what? Like,
there's a lot of furries that are really good at it, right? It's a thing I've noticed. Maybe it's the Robin Hood, like you watch that and then you want to do animation, but then you also get like slanted in a certain way sexually. I don't know. Like I'm trying to figure out like the connection there.
I understand. It makes sense to me personally. But anyway.
Fair enough.
Yeah, nah, dude. I feel that. I think that making animation for like fun and like passion is definitely gonna fucking come back, because it's already there. Like, and if there's something like bridge that gap between like Newgrounds, where you go, where you have like something like big and amazing that you want to show off, like you make a product, you spend like a year on it, and then you put it there, and bridging the gap between that and like Twitter, where there's like a bunch of people posting like works in progress. Maybe getting the people from like Newgrounds who make like indie films or have like big projects to just like correspond with the audience more, because animation takes time.
Yeah.
Between those two things, and like just the fact that, I mean, now it's either like you play video games or you talk about video games, on YouTube, or you get rich. Right. So it's like the people who want to express themselves are just making what they want to make again.
Yeah.
And it's just bridging it.
I agree. I think that's a really smart strategy this day and age, where because the internet, the game is constantly like broadcasting out a signal, right? So like you were saying, like work in progresses and rough animatics or rough animation sort of keeps like the awareness up, and then like you said, hopefully that then leads to the big release. And like that's actually what I'm doing with this other little small animation project I'm doing. But yeah, every time we get something done, we kind of throw it out there, and then that keeps it relevant, and then hopefully at that point the audience is like, now we're ready for the big kahuna or whatever. So yeah. I know you're doing similar stuff, because you're doing that again, it's that same character, right? It's the what's the character's name? The warlock?
The warlock's name is Arcady.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to do more with that character, but I'm actually trying to finish like another film that I started 3 years ago.
Oh shit.
Before I even came up with that character. So I'm like doing that right now. But yeah, dude, it's like just seeing a lot of the artists that I follow. Like I really like Fred Fox, who makes like a Fox in Space, and like a lot of those guys who have like these big projects.
Saw that.
You see that shit? Yeah. Some good shit. Like that guy, like I feel like he has it like perfectly figured out because he corresponds with his audience. He talks with them on Discord, releases like clips and stuff, and then like, you know, when the final product is out, it's like just a big like rain of like amazement because you know you saw this thing coming together. And
Yeah.
if there were more people doing it, it tends to kind of be a thing that like animator or artists do for each other to like do works in progress and stuff. But that's kind of an entire audience on its own. It's just like other artists, you know, like watching each other's stuff and like going back and forth. And I love looking at that stuff.
Yeah, no, I remember a few years ago, I used to have the mentality of like, I don't want to know the magic. I don't want to see the inner workings of how this works because I want to, like, so I was putting myself in the shoes of an audience member and being like, I want to see the whole thing once it's all done so I can believe in magic, right? But then, but then I was thinking like, there is going to be that person who is just a casual subscriber to me on YouTube, but it doesn't hurt that like a fraction of those people are watching the process because you know the final product is going to reach hopefully way more people anyway. So it's okay to show like you know the smokes and the mirrors and all that stuff, the behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, that was just again just like if I was an audience member, how would I want it to be served to me or whatever. But yeah.
I feel that, yeah, because like that's the thing. I feel like when I don't know about you, but like I kind of for a long time, like just because of like making like finished stuff on Newgrounds, I thought to myself like, oh, like if an animation is not fully colored and like inked and like composited and stuff, it's not done. Like it doesn't exist. And I taught myself that mantra to help myself actually like be productive, you know, when I was a teenager. And getting out here, you know, you're only doing what would be considered on the internet to be like a WIP, you know, or just like a small part of something. And I think because of that, a lot of people are like shy to kind of show their process too, because it's like there is a smaller audience for it, you know, like a lot of people don't want to just look at like a clip or something, but yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes getting that hype and that encouragement beforehand helps you to move on in the project.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's the way of the internet now. It's like it's if it's longer than like 30 seconds on Twitter, it's like, I don't got time for that shit.
Yeah.
That's just way too much or whatever. I was going to ask you back to your animation stuff. Is there like a specific anime that you feel was the most influential for you? Like, because especially with all the Sakuga or Sakuga stuff that we were talking about. Like, is there an anime that you thought, I want to do that, I want to try that?
Yeah, hands down, it was Samurai Champloo.
Okay.
Yeah. That and is like, and also like Naruto to an extent because there would be those moments in Naruto. I haven't seen every episode, but I'm very aware of like the lore because I know when it gets to the important fights, that's when that shit starts looking amazing.
Yeah.
And like that's like that was the first place I discovered like Sakuga was I grew up watching DBZ, and then as like a teenager I was starting to, you know, animate and stuff. And there was this one time like Toonami had like a marathon of like Naruto on like fucking Thanksgiving or something. Like Naruto's giving on Toonami, and like I was not interested at all in this show. I read the manga like in Shonen Jump, but I was starting to get more refined taste as a weeaboo, and like I was like, oh yeah, like this shonen or whatever, it's just like Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
And but one day there was nothing on Cartoon Network but Naruto, and I was just like, okay, fine, like I'll just watch this shit. And I saw that there were these moments where like they would suddenly like, you know, a character would be like weeping profusely, and like it would be the most beauteous, like expressive animation, and then they would just start like whooping ass and like throwing daggers around, and it's like fully frame by frame with like crazy like camera movements and stuff like that. And I'm like, what is this? What is it? Why did it suddenly become amazing? And then it stops and it goes back to like Sasuke, like, and I'm just, you know, just like still screaming, but like I'm like, wait, no, what was that? Like, go back to that shit. Like, what was that? And like that made me aware of it. So like I was always like looking for like anime fights, and there was this dude that I was kind of like casual buddies with online, he went by Hulalau on Newgrounds, and he was always animating these fight scenes. Like he liked to animate them, you know, kind of in the same like inspiration that I did. And he started posting these videos, which had this like soccer shit with all these names I didn't recognize, and I like clicked one of them and I'm like, this is it. This is that thing. It has a name. Like this thing that I fucking love. Like, you know, like it's the whole reason I watch anime, you know, in the first
Those
place.
little moments,
like, yeah. And like I started like really like geeking out about the animators and found out the guy who got my attention, Norio Matsumoto, who was like my favorite animator, you know, just these fight scenes on Naruto, like every 30 episodes, shit starts moving and it's just like, oh my God.
No, I think for me, I had the similar thing with like FLCL and not Shampoo, but I did like the fights in Bebop. I liked how Spike Spiegel was paying serious homage to Bruce Lee, and the camera wasn't crazy in that show, but I don't know if you saw the feature length Cowboy Bebop movie.
Yes, I have.
Okay, yeah. So the fight at the end, I watched that like 10 times. It was just so ridiculous. It was like it felt like the characters were hitting harder than a live action. Like, you know what I mean? Like you felt it more than it would have been if like Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan shot that. It was crazy.
Yeah. That fight with Spike and Vincent is my favorite piece of animation like in existence. That is like amazing. Like Cowboy Bebop it's not at the top of my list, but like that fight probably changed everything. Like for me, like I was like, oh yeah, like this is what I want to do. Like that. Like I think after watching the Cowboy Bebop movie, like I was like, I'm definitely like doing this cartoon thing now. Because I like learned Flash around the time I saw that, like as a teenager, like when it came out, and I wanted to like make games, and I was just learning how to animate so I can animate, you know, to make video games. But then like I saw like that fight and just like all that stuff, and also like a lot of like the animators, you know, making their own animators on Newgrounds, you know, stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is me. This is dope. Like fuck games, I'm not doing this shit. Like this is what I want to do.
I had the same thing. I remember freshman year of high school, I thought like, well, I love video games, so I'm going to be a programmer. And I haven't programmed at all in my professional life, but you know, I thought I was in the right ballpark, just completely the wrong discipline. So, dude. So for you, like, do you hope to keep sort of progressing? Like you want to, because you're storyboarding at the moment, right? Do you ever see yourself like wanting to try like directing or like you know, making your own stuff or?
I think that's a question I grapple with every day, to be honest, because I do like working in studios a lot, but I don't like the constraints, like as immature as it feels to say. Like I really hate the constraints and like the correctness and the perfectionism. And I think, honestly, if I could just keep doing storyboards, my dream life is to do storyboards at a studio for like 6 months out of the year, and then just spend the other 6 months just making whatever the hell I want to make. Like, and maybe like farther on in my life when I'm like a grizzled like vet or something, like I'll try and get a show. But I have no desire to like lead in the industry or like have a show at the moment.
That's a whole thing too, because I think what you were speaking on was the fact that like you can get sometimes more of an impact out of an audience without being overly a perfectionist, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Newgrounds, I think, taught a lot of us, and myself included, because I had the same experience where I'd be at a studio and I'd be like, you know, we've been looking at this goddamn shot for 6 weeks now. I think the 17th round is not going to make that big of a difference.
Yeah.
And we're burning a lot of money because there's a lot of guys sitting in this room. We're all getting paid by the hour. And then you think, and I think, like, well, you just go home and for just your own time, get something that's going to get a bigger response out of somebody or whatever. So yeah. So so the idea of I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but so the idea for you is ending up in a leadership spot like that. It's going to be a lot of sort of major compromise in terms of how maybe you would want to do things, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
That's why I want to wait until later, because right now I know that I'm like green and like, selfish with my vision, and I don't want to subject anybody else to that because I've been subjected to that shit. I fucking hate it. I don't like it when people like come at me like, "Oh yeah, like why didn't you do what I would have done with my own hands?" And I'm just like, "Cuz I'm not you, motherfucker." Like, don't you get it? But it's just, yeah, like I know that if I do ever get like a show or something like that, and I do want one. I'm not gonna lie,
yeah.
but like I
Be
would,
awesome. Yeah, it'd be incredible if like it did come to that. Yeah.
yeah, like I just want to be in a space where I'm aware that the people around me are not. I will have made everything I wanted to make on my own, and like lived a life as an artist before, so that I won't be trying to like force them to do what I feel like I've been like repressing,
Yeah.
like read my mind and make everything that's all in my head. That's how I would do if I was leading right now, and I don't want to do that. I feel like with my own hands, I'll make like another like, you know, I'll make a whole like animated like web anime like on Newgrounds, like in the next few years with Hyenaville or something, and then like after that I'll be like, all right, I'm satisfied, and I've been working for a while, let me sit in that director's seat and try it, at least.
Yeah.
But I did direct actually at Fox ADHD a few times on
cool.
some stuff, but yeah, like even then, like I tried not to like control it too much, just because even by that point, I saw kind of what perfectionism can do to a project. Just because you're a perfectionist, it doesn't mean that what you're making is perfect. And I'm sure we all know people who, kind of don't really get that. So
Yeah. I think it's like trial and error for a lot of like first time director types, and it's good that you've sort of seen that like in a certain production environment, you don't want to belabor anything too much. Yeah, sometimes if you're in a director spot, if it gets 90% to where you wanted, that might be good enough for the moment. So
that's phenomenal if it gets to 90. Like that's like fucking finding Bigfoot, man. Yeah.
yeah, no, I think also to your point about like waiting a bit before trying to go for that stuff, I think a lot of times the people who make the most artful stuff or the stuff that's the most true, I guess, to a director's vision, they don't do that usually by necessarily. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes they'll work their way up the system and then they become, like a Brad Bird or something. But like very oftentimes, the more stuff you make on your own, the more stuff that it speaks for itself, and then that way, if anything like from that library pops and becomes kind of, well known or whatever, then all of a sudden it's less of a fight because it's like, oh, we know that this guy is going for a certain thing, not like he's untested. We don't know what the hell is in his head or whatever. So
yeah. That's actually something I'm very aware of too. Like I don't want to like hold out, to make something that like maybe gets the studio's attention, but like that's why I'm like, still doing like half and half. But yeah, like I love stories like, Brad Neely, who made like China, Illinois, that's one of my favorite cartoons ever, and it never fails to make me vomit laughing like every time I watch it. And I'm like, this motherfucker had like all these like very simple cartoons that he did on his own, and it was very clear what was going on inside his brain. And that's why also, even when I'm looking for work in the industry, I try to do more than just what is being done at work for like my portfolio. Like, for my Hyenaville cartoons with my wizard character, like every time I do one of those, I make sure to like I put an exorbitant amount of effort into the storyboards. Not for myself, because actually it's more of a hindrance when it comes to making full cartoons to like go overboard with like one step, but because I'm making the cartoon already, and then I'll have something that I could show like a director and be like, this is the kind of shit that I am good at, or this is where you can see my strengths and weaknesses, in this product. This is what I would do for you, and this is what's going on in my head, but like having the tangible material there they can look at is like super important. So
yeah.
I'm all about that.
No, that's smart. I think that's the smartest way to do it, where you're Yeah, because I noticed that when I was watching some of your boards, and then because you were posting the board version and the final version, and yeah, I was like, this board version is actually, for I guess as an artist, kind of for me a little bit more interesting because it feels very solid. It feels very like even honestly, even not as an artist, you could sit there and watch it and enjoy it because it's working. It's very clear and like very cleaned up. And I was talking about earlier, like your backgrounds and everything. It's pretty close to something almost like a final drawing. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, like it makes like it definitely helps, and also it's just like it's some shit I could show off and be like, hey, rather than trying to LA network by trying to attach yourself to somebody's like skin or whatever, like maybe I'll just make what I'm capable of or what I like to do, and then you can look at what I've made and decide if you want me to do this instead. That's my thing I've hugged.
That's another big thing too, is that sometimes there's artists who it feels like there's two kinds of people. It's like there's the artist who accidentally finds the job because like, yeah, I was just cleaning the toilet and they needed a guy to like draw fucking Mickey Mouse and I had all my fingers, so I drew him. And then you have like the guys who are a little more like purposeful, who are like, I want this specific job. That's why I'm gonna show off what I can do with that or whatever. So yeah. So I mean, that's what's great about the internet, right? Like we can throw that out there and hopefully it lands on the right set of eyeballs and everything.
Yeah, that's where that shit was most helpful too, because like by the time I got to the industry, nobody in my graduating class knew how to look for like an animation job, like, in the modern day, in the modern generation or whatever. And, but like one thing I held on to was like, well, you can always just make stuff by yourself. Like you don't have to wait for permission or to get hired or to get a school assignment. And that was what was most helpful for me, like getting there, and being from Newgrounds and stuff. So,
what do you hope that the industry, in terms of where it's going, like what would you like to see more of with shows, or even if it's like aimed at kids or whatever? Like, is there a certain flavor that you want to see more of, or like some hopes and dreams for where the industry might go towards?
If you had asked me this maybe like 4 years ago, I'd have had a whole list of stuff. But like, I gotta be honest with you, I don't have any real like wants or expectations from the industry. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that I'm like apathetic to it or that I think it's perfect, because I'm far from that. Mm-hmm. But more just because I want, rather than the industry, I want independent stuff to get bigger. I want people to pay more attention. I want people to feel like I did when I was a kid. Like I thought that, every last other teenager making cartoons in their mom's basements was so important, because it was these ideas being put straight from their imagination to the screen. But I know that's not really, it's too flowery to work in the industry, that way. Like if you have an auteur, who's making 100% his vision, not everybody's gonna have that vision. Like it's still gonna get diluted. And I mean, hell, I'd like to see more Sakuga. I'd like to see more stuff that's not just about children. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see more queer stuff, more stuff with people of color. I'd like to see a lot of things, but I feel like people making this stuff on their own and like at home can a lot faster like reach all these amazing things that like the industry will never be able to catch up with, and it's infinite like bureaucratic red tape and rigmarole and like money exchanging hands. And hey man, I like big industry cartoons. Like I still enjoy them. Like there's shit that's coming out I'm excited about, but everything I want, I feel like I could find from some asshole on Twitter. Like, to be completely honest. So,
I was gonna say, this is something that I remember that Adam Poloian talked about, or we talked about when he was around. That sometimes that TV executives think that something may not be, broadly appealing, or that not everybody's gonna like. But you never know when something that seems so weird and not appropriate for mass audiences, sometimes when that's given a shot, that's sometimes the thing that changes the industry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's a bit of a gamble, but I think that's why when like the Thundercats thing came out, there was such a visceral negative response, because I don't even know if it was so much about Thundercats being done wrong or whatever, but I think it was more of like, here we go again. We've seen this a million times, and it's almost like style fatigue at this point. So I wonder if that's why it was important to have Ren and Stimpy. It was important to have Adventure Time. It was important to have that mold breaking piece. So I think for everything that you're talking about, for independent stuff being the most interesting, like it's always that situation where when somebody lets that happen and they throw it out there, that's kind of sometimes an atomic bomb goes off in a good way, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just kind of hoping that somebody has the balls to let that happen. So yeah.
I hope for the same thing, man. Like all the time, and like, you know, sometimes I'm like, you know, as egotistical as it sounds, I would love to be that guy to make the industry like really question itself and then fucking implode personally. But like, like it, those things come, and like everybody tells you, you know, the rules, you know, and what you can and can't do, until somebody breaks the rules in just the right way, and suddenly everybody wants to imitate that, and then that becomes the rules, like in the industry. I'm like,
Now I was gonna say, I like how in your cartoons, because they're super like action based and super violent, but at the same time, like I find myself laughing my ass off at the same time, and that's something that you don't see. I feel like sometimes cartoons are like this genre or this genre, like now you're laughing, now it's violent, and now it's dark and whatever. But like you have this fun little thing going on. Like I don't know, like is
I like my gore to be very lighthearted, actually. Like because like it's the conflict between like the things that I like. My two favorite animated shows in the world are Samurai Champloo and Futurama.
Perfect.
In equal measure, and for like different reasons. And I feel like most of the point when I really like discovered like my style or whatever as like a teenager, like on Newgrounds, was when I was like, if every cartoon I made was basically like violent, vicious anime, but with like raunchy Western humor, you know, that like kind of has like some heart behind it or like some emotion behind it. Like I could like do that, and that's what I've been chasing.
All right, sweet. So let's shift gears a little bit, and we're gonna do. We have one Q&A, or we have one Q for the Q&A from the Shot Talk Patreon group. Okay. So the question is, it's from Yasin, who has a picture of Homer Simpson screaming as his icon.
Oh my!
And he asks, do you have to move to LA in order to make a living of animation?
So I would say no, honestly. I mean, it's if you want to work in a studio, definitely. But I think I've actually thought a lot about ways to live in animation as an animator without being in LA, and there's definitely methods. Like I mean, a lot of people do like freelance, you know, from like they'll freelance to studios in LA, and you know, if you can find somewhere, I feel like if you can find somewhere cheap to live and make independent stuff and turn like a small profit off of that, like I feel like that's like the way to go.
That's the dream, man. Yeah, completely. I've thought a lot about that too. As much as I think Los Angeles is a great place because the top talent is out here. So if you need, even if you're doing live action, if you need like a good like a grip or like a cinematographer or whatever, a layout guy, like they're all out here. But yeah, man, if you can crack that and like live like in Texas or something, and you're making like a really successful web series, that's the dream. That'd be so fun to do. Yeah. And I know a lot of stuff too, like with CG anyways, there is a lot of remote work that you can do anyways if you're working for studios. They'll just need like the Maya rig, and you can just animate from home and everything. So yeah, like that's a huge thing I've thought about, because like I have other friends who I actually have some friends who are like here, but they're not working in studios, and they are still like making it somehow miraculously, and those people are monsters, and I don't know how the hell they do it, but yeah, like we tried to like start like a little operation where we were making like indie cartoons called Ghost Satellite that we were doing, and
like some of the people who we were doing it with, like they like quit their jobs to just do this full time, like make indie cartoons and like and to make freelance stuff for like some YouTubers and like Ninja Sex Party and like some of those guys. And but yeah, if we had been doing that, like, you know, anywhere where the rent was like, you know, less than $1,000 per person, you know, like, we probably could have like been on Easy Street, you know, doing some stuff like that. I constantly think about like every day, because like all my friends, they're all from the North too, and like man, I was paying $366 a month for my rent. Like I had roommates, but like it was like less than $400 a month in the apartment right before I moved here, and I'm just like, man, if I had a shitty Patreon, like I could like pay for that. Like every day I think about it, I'm like, I'm out here like
not even a good Patreon, just like
it's like a mild Patreon, like Sakimi-chan just like sneezed like a little bit, or like Jim Sterling or something like sneezes and like a couple of bucks fall out of their pocket. Like yeah.
Would you like to go back to Detroit then, and or is there another spot that you'd like to check out?
I'd go back to Chicago, not Detroit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like Chicago, you know, like you can find like rent for like half to like a third of like the price of here, and get like a pretty nice spot. And if I could get like even like a quarter of like the revenue that I've made like making storyboards here, like, and then could like go back there and just make whatever the fuck I want all the time, and and get good ass Chicago food. Like, why would I even be here? Like, what am I here for?
Are you a fan of the deep dish?
Yes.
The deep dish? Yeah. Yes, I haven't had it proper. I went to like, where the fuck did I go? It wasn't even, I know it was not at all authentic, but so yeah, I've heard that the food there is amazing, and that the city in general is just like a really cool place to visit. Yeah. So they also have like hot dogs there. I think they're famous for that.
Yeah. They're fucking weird about their hot dogs, man. Like there's places there where like they will kick you out if you ask for ketchup. And I'm just like, yeah, I appreciate the pride, but that's also pretentious as fuck. Like, don't do that.
Like mustard? It has to have like, what do they put on them? Like,
just like Chicago dog like consists of like hot dog and then like pickles and like mustard and then like tomato or something and like a big ass like hock of cheese and like
sliced tomatoes.
Yeah, like fully like sliced tomatoes that will like make the hot dog cold. And like they fucking like love that shit. Yeah. And like it's good, but like also like it's famous, but it's just kind of, I feel like you kind of had to be there to get it. Chicago.
You gotta drink the Kool-Aid a little bit. Yeah. That's funny.
The food there is like amazing. I lived in the Chinatown in Chicago, and like it was super cheap, and also I was surrounded by Chinese food everywhere.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing. So
it was good, because it's funny because there's obviously a Chinatown out here in LA, and I remember going. So what happened was I had a friend who was proper like from China, and she was like, "Oh, I'll take you to an authentic place." And I thought, great. I love that experience generally if I can find it. And so we go to this place, and like the menus themselves had no English on them. They were all just I don't know if it was Mandarin or Cantonese or whatever, but there was no English on the menu, and I can't say it was a good experience, sadly. It was just very odd and very just, I don't know if my palate wasn't used to it, but it felt like every dish that they brought out was the opposite temperature of what it looked like. So they brought out like a dish of like greens, and I thought, oh, I guess this is the salad portion, and they put it down, and it's just like boiled cabbage leaves or something. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And they bring out like a plate of pig ears, and I'm thinking like, oh, maybe they're like crunchy bacon something or others, and they're all like straight out of the refrigerator, and I'm like, what the hell's happening here? So it's nice to hear that you at least had a positive experience with the local Chinese food, because I was like, man, I don't know about all of this. I gotta be honest.
Fucking like LA, they actually it's kind of, I feel like the Chinese food in Chicago, like the Chinatown was actually like more kind of like palatable for like a Western kind of like eater, but like yeah, out here, like I've seen like some wild shit like that. Like I have a Chinese friend also who kind of acts as like a translator, you know, when we go and get Chinese food. But like, she's never brought me anywhere too crazy. Like, you know, like it's and also
boiled
like,
duck feet. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna turn down duck feet, but like at the same time, it's like I'm not used to it.
I don't want to offend your mom, but I'm gonna pass on this.
I'm just if it was her mom, I would fucking eat the duck feet. I wouldn't. I wouldn't have the balls to not eat the duck feet. Yeah.
Hey, Kalen, thanks for coming by, and I think we talked about some cool stuff. Always nice to hear, especially with all the independent stuff. I think that's so important that people keep that fire going. So I'm glad we talked about that stuff. So yes, thank you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, we'll see you guys next time on Shot Talk.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Shot Talk and would like to see more episodes in the future, please consider contributing to the Shot Talk Patreon. You can sign up today at patreon.com/shottalk. There are all types of rewards, like receiving episodes early, access to private Discord servers, and more. Thanks for listening. See y'all next time.